Estás escuchando PlanetaXLive.com. Descarga la aplicación en tu iPhone o Android Market.
Hello, Jennifer Villarreal here. Welcome, heart-centered business professionals, especially those of you who are heart-centered business owners, sales professionals, and entrepreneurs. This is the Sales from the Heart Show, the place where business meets heart and soul. And with me is my favorite co-host.
Hi, I'm Rocio Vallejo. Hi, Jennifer. Hello to all our wonderful listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, Rocio, a lot of people have asked me what is the meaning of your name. Can you give our listeners a little breakdown on your beautiful name?
Sure, that was unexpected. So Rocio actually means morning dew.
Morning dew?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's pronounced?
It's pronounced Rocio.
Rocio.
Yeah, I would pronounce it in Spanish for you, but I have trouble rolling my R's.
Oh, so you're like me as well.
Yes.
We speak Spanish like a 5-year-old, right?
Yes.
So the show is in English, and we're going to encourage you to chime in and ask your business questions, sales questions, or maybe just you're in a little bit of a funk and you want to know how to get out and move in a different direction. Everything goes here on the show within reason. So if you're calling in to find out if we're single, I know you did that. Tune into the first show that we aired. But how can they call in, Rocio?
Okay, so I encourage you to log our number into your phone. Our number here is 773-236-0015. Or log into our website and watch us live if you're not already doing so. And that is www.planetaxlive.com. That's planetaxlive.com.
All right.
All right. Should we get started?
Let's do that.
Okay. So I have a question for you. You went on a recent trip to Shanghai, right? What an amazing trip that must have been.
Yes, I went to China. I wasn't expecting to go there. I was originally planning on going to Israel, and with everything going on there, we moved our plans over to China. So it was quite different than what I was expecting. It was a lot more Americanized than I thought it would be.
Okay.
Yes, and it's interesting because a lot of people there want things that say English sayings on them, for instance, on their shirts and a lot of the products. And I was asking, hey, where can I get some really good ice cream? And they pointed to Haagen-Dazs, which is somewhat American, right? We have that here.
Right.
But there's other things that I just wasn't expecting it to be. So, and it's funny because the things are usually made in China.
Right.
But
right.
So, but the people were absolutely fantastic, very nice and welcoming, and a few funny stories that happened along the way.
I definitely want to hear those. So, pretty long flight. Right?
Yes.
Okay, how long was that?
So it took us a total of about 13 hours or so to get there. We flew into San Francisco, and then from there, we flew into Shanghai. And I didn't think jet lag would actually kick in or have an effect on me, but it did on the way back. So
oh, really? Okay, how so? What happened?
I'm recovering from that.
Still?
Yes.
I guess
we won't share those details. Too much info there, but yeah, for about 3 days when I came back, I am pretty much bedridden and, sick and feeling in that funk.
Right.
Just when you have no energy, your mind starts to race and you start to doubt and question, and everything went through my mind in not being able to really eat and probably dehydrated as well. I went into that funk of anxiety, feeling that depression, which I haven't felt in a long time. We talked about this in the last show, but I wasn't filling up spiritually during that time either.
So you felt disconnected?
I definitely felt disconnected, questioning, feeling the pressure of all these things that I have coming up. I have an event in 2 weeks at the JW Marriott in Chicago for the National Hispanic Sales Network. We're doing a sales seminar. And I was like, I don't even know if I should do this. What am I going to talk about? Right. Even though I have, somewhat of an outline in going to be filling that in, I started doubting these things. And what I found is, when I'm not using my gifts,
right,
then that starts to set in.
I can totally relate. Totally relate. So, while you were in Shanghai, I was in Pennsylvania. My sister got married. So I was there for a couple of days. and I completely disconnected from everything, work, social media, everything. I just wanted to focus on my family. I'm always really busy, so I wanted to use that time, to spend with my family. Excuse me. And what ended up happening was when I got back, I felt like I felt guilty
Yeah.
for not having worked on my business. I felt very anxious, and I felt kind of like I was just in limbo. And it took me a couple of days, and even up until recently, we spoke. Was it yesterday or the day before? And I think I had mentioned to you that I was dealing with serious anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and finally, it's I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
But-
And I think, anxiety is out there more than we probably talk about and that we bring to the workplace because we're supposed to be in that work mode. We're supposed to be, all successful and can
Right.
handle anything. But these moments do come up. And so we want you to know that this is a safe place to bring up any of those questions that you may have. You can call in and share your real name, or you can remain anonymous, use a different name, use a fun name. Either way, we're here to serve you. And I think sometimes when I go through these trials and tribulations, it's for me to also remember. And then a few of my clients end up going through it a week later, a few days later, and I can actually relate to them. So understand these trials and tribulations can be used to serve other people. And so how I got out of that funk was Monday morning, there I was getting back into the groove of things,
Right.
Speaking with clients and remembering what my true gift is. And if you're not sure what your gift is, if you're out there and you're walking around like a zombie and just going through the motions, Groundhog's Day, repeating and stuck in that same routine, feel free to call in and share with us a little bit more about that. And maybe we can dive into embracing what your strengths are and what those blessings are for you.
Okay, so what do you think about covering some tips? So if you haven't already tapped into your gifts, or if you are kind of can relate to what Jennifer and I have previously experienced, and you already know what those gifts are, but you haven't been practicing them.
You're not using
You're
them.
not using
Right.
them, right? What can you do to what can you do to tap into those?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, it's important to understand that foundation that we have to build off of, right? And I go back to this, and I've talked about this in my book, discovering and really understanding who you truly work for, understanding who you truly are. Because if you're out there trying to get a job based on just the money, the title, the significance of it all, it's going to come crumbling down. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who reach that success from a monetary standpoint, but yet still feel that void,
Right.
go into that funk, go into that depression. I faced those suicidal thoughts as well for many years. And most people didn't know. They looked at me like the life of the party, yet I was at home miserable, not understanding what my true purpose was.
Right.
So it's really important to have that foundation. And we've mentioned this before on the other shows. We're not here to convince, convert, and condemn. It's not about your religion and all these different religions. I'm pretty open about my relationship that I have through Christ, but I work with people of all different faith backgrounds, including atheists, and they still have a belief in something, right?
Definitely.
So it's not about that. We're not here to get into a religious debate, but we're here to tap into whatever that, higher power is for you, whatever you want to call it. It's first and foremost important to develop that relationship.
Right. But I do believe, I agree with you, I do believe that a good spiritual foundation is very important. Very
Yes.
important. You can't really, you can build a house, but how long is it going to last if it's not on a sturdy foundation?
Exactly.
Or isn't built on a sturdy foundation. So definitely establishing that or creating that for yourself. I'm amazed. I notice, especially on social media, Facebook, a lot, how many people are searching and looking to find what their purpose in
Yes.
life is.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now, do you believe that that your purpose, that your job has to be what your purpose in life is?
Do I believe that my job has to be what my purpose in life is?
Or
I
can
think
they
that
be-
you
yeah.
can show up regardless of where you're working and allow these things to pass through you to serve other people. Absolutely.
Okay.
So, a lot of times people say, okay, you need to connect. Let's go back to the spiritual aspect of it. Well, how do I do that? Well, you know what? When we're hanging on to these resentments, these guilt, the shame, the things that we have done to other people, things that have been done to us, it's hard to fill back up.
Right.
So there are ways and methods that we can work with you to remove some of those things. And yes, sometimes we have to go back towards childhood. And this isn't necessarily therapy. We're not talking about that. That has its place, and counseling and all of those things. But this is more getting to the root of connecting those dots of what has triggered us to behave and act in the ways that we're doing now,
Yeah.
and blocking us from stepping into that greatness, because we start to self-sabotage. We start to have these limiting beliefs, these doubts, these things that stand in our way. And yes, it very much affects us in the business life.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe-
It's all interconnected.
Absolutely, because maybe if we're, used to getting rejected, for instance, then we're going to try to chase and validate ourselves even more, especially when we're dealing with a client. Maybe we're going to come on too strong as opposed to asking questions and understanding their needs first.
Or we get offended.
Or we get offended, yes. There might
Right.
be a few of you already that have
Right.
tuned out. But you know what? We should be able to remain neutral and hear other perspectives, hear different views, and be able to have these conversations from the heart.
Right. Definitely. I agree. So what next? Once we've let's go here. Let's do this. And excuse me over there. But so let's say we know what our purpose is, or we have an inclination as to what we would like our purpose to be.
Sure.
So I think mine, when I started to tap into what I felt my purpose was, I just established that it was to help to empower women and young girls. And so I tried to develop my business plan around that, because I was one of those people that thought that my purpose and my job had to be one.
Yes.
And so I've learned that wasn't, or necessarily is, the case. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
Take it from
so
here.
how does it tie in there?
does it tie in?
I think you have to take that leap of faith first and just keep walking. You don't necessarily need to know exactly where you're going to go. You have to trust that you're being led in that appropriate direction. And sometimes that just means we're going to walk to the playground and try out a few different things before we get to that final, magical theme park, right? Where we're in awe and really living out our dream. And so a lot of people want to know the how first. They want to, it might seem counterintuitive, but you just have to take that leap, trust, and that's where your higher power comes into play, right? And trust that God, has this plan designed for you because you're truly working for Him.
Right. I don't think that's always easy, though.
No,
I know
not
for
at
me
all.
it wasn't, especially because I feel like in the last couple of months my faith has definitely grown dramatically. But starting off, or even a year ago, I never would have even been able to wrap my head around what that looked like or felt like. Let go and let God. What does that really?
It's a lot easier said than
right.
done,
But if it's
right?
something that you've never experienced, which is something that I've currently experienced, it was so funny because the other day I was in my kitchen and I was telling my husband, I was like, I finally get what that saying means. I totally get what that saying means. But I've experienced things that have led or strengthened that belief.
That's the key
but-
word right there, is experience.
And that's what it is when you lack that experience, you have no idea. You have no idea.
Yes. And so I went through my experience, which I've shared a few times here in 2011, that near-death experience. And I elaborate more on that on my book that you can find on Amazon. And if you're interested in a copy, just email me at info@salesfromtheheart.com, and I'd be happy to send that over to you. But, it was really that experience
Right.
that I went through because I needed to see it and experience it, then be able to allow it to live through me. And this doesn't mean that we don't have our mistakes and fallen moments and, we're living this so-called, perfection. And it's not necessarily about good and bad and deeds and all these things. It's about opening up our heart to that presence, having that relationship, trusting that. And then all of a sudden, all these things start lining up. So for you, your business ended up going in this direction, but then ultimately it got to what your big dream was.
And that's ultimately what led me. That was the experience that led me to really understand what it meant to just let go and to have faith. You know, I would hear it all the time, and I'm guilty of telling friends and clients to just have faith. Have faith; it'll all work out. And everyone,
And
what's the
sometimes
response you get when you tell somebody that? Yeah, I already know. You know,
Yeah,
I get it.
I know
yeah.
it all. And
Yeah.
you know what? I was my own mini God for a long time. And quite frankly, I sucked at it. And I
it's
hurt a lot of
exhausting.
people
Right.
along the way, and especially myself.
Right.
And, nothing is impossible for God. And when you turn that over, you start to just trust that process. And for some of my other clients who we don't use, that term, whatever you want to call it, just something other than yourself, because we put all this pressure on our shoulders, especially the prominent business owners that I work with, right? They have all these responsibilities, payroll, all these things to make sure that things are going forward. And then all of a sudden they're in the hospital with, high blood pressure. They're having a breakdown. They're having problems at home. You're having that dysfunctional relationships. You're out drinking and doing the other things that are destructive to your life. And I'm not saying, having a glass of wine or beer every now and then is, whatever. That's up to you.
Right.
But when it's taking control of your life and you're showing up to work hungover, or you can't, function correctly, that's a problem. Right.
So,
And I lived through that, by the way. So no judging here. What we're saying is that how do you get past that? And if you want any to ask us any questions on that, please feel free to call in. And again, I know that's kind of a difficult thing to be vulnerable and put out there. But hopefully by you hearing some of our stories that we're sharing, you'll feel comfortable to share that with us.
and you can, and then hopefully you can relate. So, I think when we use the term, being your own God, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
I know for me, I'd never really heard the term until we met, and it everything kind of just fell in place, and I got it. And what that looked like was pushing so hard because I wanted so much to be successful.
And your definition of success was what?
My definition of success. So I think it always kind of subconsciously was monetary. It was material. What that success would look like. In material objects.
So a new car, a
new house.
Right.
More money in my bank account. And I didn't like that. So when people would ask me how I would define success or my own success, I started to say happiness. So I would just give like a very vague answer. Happiness. Okay, well, Rocio, what does happiness look like for you? And so I had to kind of shift that a little bit. And so now success for me at one point or towards the end of last year looked like, I think I started to tell people, and I even told you, was being established enough that I could take a chance on somebody else, somebody that was looking for a break. Being
able to serve others.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. But that was the terminology that I was using at that time. Was I didn't know what it was to serve others.
Yeah.
And
that's the principles that we teach at Sales from the Heart is serve to sell, more pretty much. So, so let's just rewind just a little bit because you touched on something about the house and the car and all those things. I think those things are important, but if we're chasing after the money for those things, thinking that's going to cause happiness, it falls short.
Right. And back to, I guess I wanted to focus still on the being your own God. So I was constantly working. I was so guilty of never saying no. People would call me and ask me if I could do something, if I was interested in an opportunity. Job opportunities would come up, projects would come up, and they weren't always related to what it was I wanted to do. But I wanted so badly to be successful that I just figured something's got to give.
Right. And so were you chasing around all these different opportunities and not knowing exactly what you needed to work on? And then before you know it, you're not really being as productive as you could be.
And I wasn't being productive because I was working so much and giving so much of myself and my abilities and my talents, but I wasn't seeing any results. I wasn't moving ahead the way I was expecting in my mind to be moving ahead. And I was so incredibly tired, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I was just exhausted. And when we met and you used that term, Rocio, and you had asked me, Rocio, aren't you tired of being your own God? And I was like, I am. I am. I'm trying so hard to make all of these things happen for me. And since then, kind of just trusting and having faith and knowing that that there is a higher being that is kind of going to lead me and direct me into what my
Right.
purpose.
So once we have that firm foundation established, then the next thing that we can do is be open to other ideas, but we want to be able to prioritize what those things are for us. So if you're out there and you're maybe unemployed right now, or you're looking to transition from your corporate job to maybe entrepreneurship or whatever it may be, we want to map out all these different opportunities that you have in a given week. And then we want to put a time slot. How much time are you investing in each of these things? And then add that up for your total week. So I think when we first started working together a few months ago, you had a lot of these things going on. You're like, I just don't have time. I'm working part-time, but there's all this stuff going on. And when we looked at that, we mapped it out. You weren't working part-time.
Right.
You were working
I
was
working,
40 hours, right?
Right. Yeah.
So-
and I was surprised. I really was. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we don't realize that until we start mapping this out. And especially if you're working with somebody else to do that, because sometimes we'll lie to ourselves or we'll contradict and we'll say we want one thing and then we're doing another thing. And so I find that it's helpful to talk this out with somebody. Even myself, I work with a few coaches. When my clients are working with me, some of the things that they say that they find to be the most valuable from our session is just talking that out, having somebody to listen to them without these judgments. But I also do give some feedback and give those roadmaps, not just ask questions of them. But I would like to hear some of your questions and what you would like to talk about. Any business challenge that you're having, or maybe even something personal, feel free to call in. So what's that number, Rocio?
Sure. That number here is 773-236-0015. We want to hear your voice. So please call in and share. So yeah, definitely. Now I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. Sometimes that happens in our job search too, right?
Right.
So as we're going through these steps and trying to figure out what our gifts are, there's going to be some other things that are going to come along and distract you. So the moment that you have this excitement, this enthusiasm, and this passion, all of a sudden somebody comes and says, well, you can't do that. Or, how are you going to be an entrepreneur? What about insurance? I've heard that one a lot. And yes, there's insurance available for those
Right.
who have their own business. Can you relate to this?
Definitely. Or how about this great opportunity is presented to you, and you're all excited and geeked. And then a couple days pass by and you find out that it's not going to happen. And I know I have very close friends who that seems to be the case for them quite often than not. And then they fall back into depression and self-doubt, and they start to question their abilities.
Or they give up on that dream completely.
And sometimes too, I have one friend in particular, and they might be listening. But this person, he or she, is very talented in different areas, and I know that he is definitely meant to be an entrepreneur. But he's so set on this one career, but he has so many other things to offer, and I keep telling this person that they should really explore these other gifts of theirs, because again, you and your, especially I can relate. In my mind, I thought that I was supposed to grow and have this really huge, successful event planning business, and when I let go and let God, something completely different happened, and something so incredibly amazing. And I feel
Which
like
we can't share just yet, right? It's still illegal.
it's yeah. I mean,
Okay, so by maybe next show.
next
we
show,
can share.
it's we're at the tail end.
But you're still using those gifts that were given to you from those previous opportunities. When
Right.
I was selling copiers about 15 years ago, I'm still using some of those skills that I learned then, or what not to do.
Right.
Even some of the relationships that I had from back then, I'm still very much connected to some of my customers from that point, and they're
Right.
good friends of mine now. So it all builds together. But when you're in that transition, it can be hard. And we want you to know that you're not alone. You do have resources for you.
Right. And I guess I just kind of want to get through to everybody too. If you can relate, and if you have been tired of being tired, and you have to ask yourself, how willing are you to change? What I mean by change is change your perspective, or change what you're used to doing and thinking and believing.
So making that decision
Is
first
key.
and foremost, without knowing exactly
is key.
where you're going to end up
So
going.
I felt like I had exhausted, I had tried everything, and I didn't know what else to do. So Jennifer kept telling me to really tap into my spirituality a little bit more, and
So we went through a process to do
we
that.
definitely,
and I think it's
yeah,
really
we definitely
important
we
to understand. And from a coaching perspective, I need to elaborate this a little bit more. I can't tell somebody anything, right?
Right.
If they're not willing and open to that first. And there is a process for us to get to.
and you have to be open.
Yes.
You really do. I mean, we are such stubborn people. And we think that we're giving, or we think that we're doing everything we can, but in reality,
Or that we know it all.
or that we know it all, or we've tried it, we've done it, before even allowing ourselves to really explore every avenue. So I know, like, I was really open and willing to tap into my spiritual life.
Right.
Okay.
And let's elaborate a little bit on that as well, because it's not about exploring every other avenue out there, right?
Right.
It's about being open to the things that you have no idea that are there and that are present. And usually that's those divine connections that come into play. So you might meet someone. There's no coincidence as to the people that we meet, but then we're like, oh my gosh, what is this person going to offer me? Or, there's nothing in it for me here, so I'm just going to move on. When in reality, that the blessing is there, you're just not willing to say yes first. So we want to be able to say yes to an idea, and then we can start moving forward to making commitments. And sometimes we're afraid of making commitments, right? Because we have those other things going on that are deeper rooted. And so it's important to release those wounds first. And again, if you don't know how to do that, we have resources for you. You can always email us at info@salesfromtheheart.com. You can call into the show, and just know that we can point you in a direction.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know if I should keep going.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. But so no, for me, definitely, I always believed in, I always believed in God. But I was very angry. Things that had happened growing up, I grew very resentful. And so when we met, and we started to kind of work through those issues, or those things, all that anger and all that resentment, I started to recognize or realize that all those times that I felt that I had been abandoned by God, I really wasn't. And there was always key people or key moments in my life where I was able to recognize, oh my God, you were always present.
So it was not just about you believing in God, but it was really about embracing the love that God has for you,
right?
And believing in
you,
and
right? And it was in the people that He had placed in my life, or experiences that I had.
So what does this have to do with business, Rocio?
Okay, so so basically
everything.
It does, and this is the foundation that we started talking about. This is definitely the foundation, and it was working through all of that that I was able to recognize that, yes, God was indeed always a part of my life. And again, if you can't relate to what we're talking about, there has to be something in your life, right? You have to make some kind of spiritual connection with something. You have to believe in.
But again, in order to get there, you have to present what the challenges are, what those blocks are for you. So maybe it's, you pick up the phone and you call somebody and they're not returning your call. Well, how many times do you do that to other people? Maybe it's being magnified. Maybe it's not as often, but it's showing up for you.
Right.
Maybe your character, your integrity isn't following through with things, and we need to work on that as well. All of this ties into the workplace. And then also maybe you're self-sabotaging. Maybe you're just not ready for extra growth and opportunity. I mean, for crying out loud, I was laid off the day after Christmas. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I've been resisting my blessing, which is coaching and working with other people for years now. I had I was in it, and then I stopped, and I was working with some pretty prominent coaches in the industry, and then I wanted nothing to do with it. And, we went through my whole story before. But the bottom line is finally, I just decided I'm going to take this leap of faith. I was on unemployment. I didn't know how I was going to put forward the investment to work with my coach, but I made the decision. And then all of a sudden, all the little synchronicities started lining up, and I was open to help from other people for the first time in forever, because I thought I had to do it all. I thought I had to provide. I had to go out there and get everything that I have. And that wasn't true. I had to be open to other opportunity, other help, other people.
Right. And would you agree that having a strong spiritual foundation or faith-based foundation would have eased the
anxiety and the stressful moments?
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't have that for so many years. And I was a hot mess, and I was very temperamental, and I did have those moments of just being in that funk, or being a workaholic and trying to hide from my feelings, right? But it was something that's intimate to each person. It's something that's unique to you and that you can end up experiencing and discovering. It's not about being hit over the head with a book of faith, right? I think those things are absolutely important to get into that word. But let God reveal that to you, right? And for me, I threw a few F-bombs out there and saying, prove it, show me, what is my path? What am I supposed to believe in? Who believes in me? I don't know. And I asked those answers to come through. So you can do the same. And if you'd like, us to guide you through anything, please feel free to call in. And we want you to know we do review practical sales tips, marketing, business aspects as well. But again, this is the foundation. Without this, everything else that you start chasing after is going to start crumbling down, because you're going to run around in circles. You're going to feel stressed out. You're going to end up having, these health issues, or relationships start to crumble around you, and then you're back to square one.
Right.
So that's why we're laying the foundation for this show today, to help you understand that.
Right. I agree. And another thing that I realized in all of this, which has really helped me work with clients and just my day-to-day life, and the people that I encounter, is that people's reactions to the things that you do or say isn't necessarily a reflection of how they feel or perceive you. It's more about what they are going through in their lives. Right?
Yes. And so you'll have people project their fears, their doubts onto you. And maybe there could be a little bit of envy, jealousy there as well. I don't know why we don't celebrate more other people's successes, because if you want that for you, you should be celebrating how it's showing up for other people. But sometimes they can put us in a funk. I know I went through that moment where I'm scrolling through Facebook. I'm seeing people, post all these great things that are happening to them in events.
And you're wondering, why not me?
Exactly. Right? And then I go into that funk. Well, I don't know where to get started, what I need to do. Well, you know what? Maybe there was a part of me that was wanting it to be perfect before I put it out there. And we've talked about this in the last show with business cards and websites, how it's not so much about the pretty, it's more about it being practical, getting that message across, having that call to action, all those technical things that are actually pretty simple, believe it or not. But it's just starting, and then rinse and repeat. Do it again, rinse and repeat, and we tweak it as we go.
Definitely. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't know. Call in.
Well, you know what? This is only our second show.
Right.
I've had a few calls to me directly, messages to me directly, but it takes people a little bit to warm up.
And then share.
Yeah, and then we'll compile more of those questions that you've sent to me personally and share those during the next show as well. Again, you can email those to info@salesfromtheheart.com, or you can call into the studio. And what's that number again?
Yeah, it's 773-236-0015. You can also log on to our page at www.planetaxlive. That's planetaxlive.com.
And you can join us at the Sales from the Heart Facebook community, so feel free to give us a like there. And if you want to connect with me personally on my page, you can absolutely do that as well. And that's jennyv.jv on Facebook.
Sounds good.
All right. So I know we have about 10 minutes more or so left here. I think there's some other things that we can tie into this. So once we remove that unknown to reveal the unlimited, which is the seminar title that's coming up.
Yes, and it's funny. I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so that's Tuesday, September 23rd at the JW Marriott in Chicago. And you can actually find out more about that on the NHSN website. So you go to nhsn.org/outloud, and that's the National Hispanic Sales Network. And we're really grateful, and I'm grateful to be a part of that board as well as be the seminar speaker coming up. And no, you don't have to be Hispanic to attend the event.
Right.
It's open to everyone. Yeah, and we had a great panel discussion at the last event, the Latinas in Sales and Marketing.
We had there were some great panelists, speakers, pretty good turnout.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was a great turnout,
It was,
and
definitely.
we get real. So if you're looking for the usual fluff on how to close, a deal,
Yeah, you're not gonna find it
No, the latest cold calling tricks. That's not what I teach on. That's old
Right.
school sales, and maybe it has a place for you in what you're doing. But I really think that we're in a new age of sales, new school sales, and so I break down sales in the acronym of the S standing for being of service, right? How we can serve other people. And when we understand what other people's needs are, and yes, there's a specific script that I give you and a process to take you through, the conversation just flows. You're not having to wonder what's going on with the prospect, with the person you're meeting with, with the deal. And then the A stands for being authentic.
Okay.
So you're just being yourself. Right? You're not trying to have to live up to somebody else's expectations. How many times do you go in to meet with maybe a CEO or a president of a company and maybe you feel a little intimidated? Or you meet with somebody who has, more credentials than you,
Right.
and you start fumbling over your words. Just connect from the heart, okay? It's not that difficult, but we can teach you if it does feel overwhelming and it is hard for you to network or connect with other people. You're not alone. We can break that down. And then
the L?
the L stands for being loving. Again, it's coming from that place of heart and understanding who you truly are and allowing that spirit to flow through you to other people. And then E is being engaged. So you want to really engage in the other person. Get to know them. Ask some questions about them as a person, not just, do you ever go to networking events and people just say, hey, what do you do?
Right.
And they're just kind of sizing you up. Oh, can you help me out or not? And remember, it's not always the people that you meet right in that moment, but it's also who they know. And
And what you have to offer.
yes, and what you have to offer to them.
Right.
And so, when I meet somebody who is sincere and from the heart, I want to introduce them to my connections. I want to bring them with me to places and help them out as much as I can. And then the S obviously stands for spiritual, or if you prefer, stubborn. So we're not going to judge based
goes,
on that,
right.
but yes, we are. And we know that too. We both were there and had those moments of stubbornness and pride and thinking that we had to do everything on our own. So, and overall, we want you to know that this community is here to support you. You're not alone. And feel free to share with us your toughest business challenge or maybe even something that's going on personally.
So without revealing too much, what should people really expect to walk away with?
Yes. Well, I've listed some bullet points on the website, so definitely make sure that you go there, nhsn.org/outloud. And really what you're going to walk away with is removing those obstacles that are preventing you from having these great connections via your business. So a lot of times people say, well, I'm not an account executive, I'm not in sales, but in reality, we all are.
Right.
We all are in the business of marketing and selling. Without that, then how do people connect with us?
Right.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is we want to give you some practical tools that you can use. So there is an e-learning program that breaks down specific to your industry, giving you all the marketing copy that you need, the sales tips. There's online tutorials and videos that guide you through specific to your industry.
That sounds great.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're
Exciting.
offering a little bonus of some group calls that you get to participate in and ask us some questions live. So another coach is going to be flying out here and joining us, and it should be a great time. We have some special gifts for you as well, especially those people that register early. So make sure you grab your tickets, and they're only $10 for early bird tickets that expire next week, Tuesday. And after that, the price would be $20.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for coordinating the event.
Of course. My pleasure.
So that's pretty much what we're going to reveal right now regarding that seminar. We'll have some more information for you next week as well.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So I think our time is up.
It's winding down here.
Yes.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that we're not available to you. So again, make sure to connect with us on Facebook, send us a message, whether you call in or send an email, and let us know your thoughts and what you would like us to discuss for future topics. Really, this is about your show as much as it is ours, right? And collaborating together.
Definitely. Definitely. So we're hoping that you tune in with us next week. Again, if you haven't logged our number into your phone, please go ahead and do so. It's 773-236-0015, and log on to our webpage and look us up. And it's our webpage is www.planetaxlive.com. That's planetaxlive.com.
All right. Well, have a good one.
Till
Stay
next week.
blessed,
Yes.
and we'll talk to you then.
Bye.